Okay. So you made a game time decision. Love that.
Uh-huh.
We're always going to encourage that because
Yes.
the instinct is everything.
Uh-huh.
But why that one in this particular moment?
So I need everyone to know, first of all, that I could not choose. This is a
You couldn't.
choice. There is a gun to my
You
head.
couldn't.
There's no way I could actually choose a track. I actually chose five tracks, but I narrowed it down to this one because it's just like it was one. I had one of those moments when I heard it for the first time where I was like, "Wait, someone else feels that way?" Like
Mm,
this is a feeling, and the feeling that I'm describing is like the speaker who I've never been able to figure out who is speaking. That is another fun, mysterious thing about this album. There's a woman who speaks throughout, or there's like little snippets of her speaking, but she talks about how she insists on her right to be multiple and about
mhm.
her own like multiplicity and how that affects her work, her creative work. And as a creative person myself, like I identify with that really deeply. It's like I constantly feel like many people in one person, or I constantly like even throughout the day, I feel like I'm a million different people or I'm a million different things. And like for a lot of my life, I have been, or people have sort of equated me with the wine industry because I've worked in the wine industry for a long time. So in like a very practical way, it's like people think of wine and they think of me, like people are constantly talking to me about wine, or like wine is just like what they think I am or the only interest I have. And I in
Yeah.
reality have so many interests and am now going or like pursuing a lot of other creative pursuits, and I feel like so excited about that. But even beyond those pursuits, I have even more creative interests, and just like I feel like it's impossible to be I don't like being pigeonholed. I don't think anyone does, but like
Yeah.
it's impossible to just like be one thing and follow one thing your whole life. And I think our generation in particular, like millennials, have really kind of explored that idea in a really cool way. Like I don't know anyone in my life who's just been doing one thing their whole life,
Right.
professional or not. It's like we're always evolving and we're always sort of like following that part of ourselves that says like, well, what if I did that? Or like, wouldn't it be fun if I moved here? Like, or there's always movement. So
Yeah.
and sort of it's about that in a nutshell to me.
Makes sense why this one it's so starkly stated too.
Yes.
Like she says, it is an exhausting, repetitive, and draining project to
Yes.
constantly explain and defend one's multiplicity.
Yes.
It's sort of like one of those things that we have a conversation about the general versus the universal, right? Like what is unspecific versus what is relatable on a universal level.
Mm.
And I kind of feel like this falls into the category of universal, where you're saying like I could change, like I will change inevitably.
Yes.
I will change, and I will grow different, different appendages and different interests. Um,
Totally.
but there will still be some sort of essential me.
Yeah. And I reserve the right to. Like
Yeah.
you cannot tell me I cannot change, which I think society tries to. Society tries to make us kind of stay or like be in a
Hmm.
specific place, but we are always going to be changing. And so embracing that is like a key to really living a creative life.
I've discovered, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I believe it is Taiye Selasi, American writer and photographer of Nigerian and Ghanaian origin, who this okay, maybe because I'm an astrological sort of guy, but the thing that stuck out to me immediately is that she is a Scorpio.
Oh,
So
that makes sense. Wait,
yeah,
what is your sign? And we need to talk more.
Scorpio. I'm Scorpio.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
we are, which I feel like the least liked sign on of the zodiac signs, I think.
I understand, but I respectfully disagree from a personal standpoint.
I'll
I
take
love
it.
Scorpios.
I'll take it.
I do
Awesome.
too. I love my Scorpios too. I have a few good ones. Michael being
Yes.
chief among them, obviously.
Chief Scorpio.
Yep.
He's my chief Scorpio, that's for sure.
Since you had so many other tracks you wanted to talk about, is there another one or two that you want to share, like why they seem so perfect to you, or like tell our listeners what other track, if they only got like 10 minutes, like which tracks should they focus on?
I would love to. It's difficult only having 10 minutes. I think you should listen to the entire album or make a little bit of time because the tracks that I really speak to me, I feel like they need a little bit of warming up. Like the
Mm.
first part of the album is great for the warming up, and the second part like really hits you. And one of my favorite songs of all time is Bystanders, which comes either right before, no, it's on the second, sort of towards the end. But I love the idea, and Moses Sumney and I share defiance. I feel like his defiance is just like so beautiful. Like he doesn't want to be this thing or he doesn't want to be that thing. He wants to like show you who he is. And it's just like he has this like energy to him that really comes out in the song Bystanders. And like the whole theme of it is like, don't waste your candor on bystanders. Like, just don't worry about it. Like, you do what you need to do and like create what you need to create. And they're going to have their opinions. They're going to be watching you, or they're not going to be watching you, but who cares? And he says it in a much more beautiful and melodic way, obviously. But I love that song so much. And the way it's just like the build of it. Yeah. Just like this amazing, it starts out really slow, and then in like true Moses Sumney fashion, it gets to this like giant kind of like booming sound comes out. I don't know how to describe it, but I just love that song.
He says they'll watch you waste away, which is crazy to think like those bystanders, they're not going to help you.
No,
that's pretty. Yeah, that's a hardcore idea.
Yeah, he's pretty hardcore. He's like very soft and hardcore, which is a Scorpio-esque trait.
Wait, is he a Scorpio too?
No. He's is he a Pisces? He's a.
We're looking it up.
No, he's a Taurus. Sorry.
May 19th, 1992.
Just barely a Taurus, but yes.
Yeah. Was it? So he's Aries Taurus?
No, he's that would be Taurus Gemini, I think.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. The longer I live, the more I believe in cusp. I didn't think that cusp people that they really mattered if you were on the cusp, but I'm really seeing in my life a lot of cuspy people that are truly two sign or the sun signs. It makes sense. That's what I'm saying.
I'm a Sagittarius sun, but I'm the first day of Sagittarius after Scorpio. So, you know, like I this is probably why I love my Scorpios. And I have a Scorpio moon. So there you go.
At the beginning of this episode, you articulated this is probably one of the greatest albums of all time. Yeah. And we're gonna quote you on that.
Okay.
I just want to remind our listeners, when our guests come on, we do ask them for a list of albums that they believe are perfect, but we don't define what perfection is. So now we're curious to know from you, what are your standards for perfection? What makes this the greatest album of all time?
Most of it has to do with vibes. I can't explain it. It's like,
sure.
But I do have a more technical answer, but I need to start with that. It's just like, does it make me feel something strongly? And does it make me feel like, does it really touch me? Like, does this album get to me in a way? And that's number one criteria. And then in terms of structure, I think it has to like tell a story or a series of stories. Like, I want to know, like, and Gray is perfect. It's perfect. And it's also so chaotic. It tells you so many stories and it bounces around. But then, like, if you really listen, you can kind of tie them together. You can like figure it out. It's not like a movie. It's not like here's the script and here's the beginning and the end. It's more like the story of a lifetime. Like the song Me in 20 Years, which is also my favorite, as a lot of them are my favorite. It takes you on this journey, this internal journey of like, where have I been? Where am I going? What is important to me? The structure of the album. So one of the albums that I had on my list for this podcast was Melodrama by Lorde, which I believe is just like an amazing album for similar but different reasons. It's an amazing one because it takes you on like a really cohesive story. Like that album, like it starts you here you start here and you end here. It's like, you know where you have been and you know where you're going. Whereas Gray is like, it's like past, present, future, and then like an alternate future kind of thing, which is really cool.
If there was an arc that you could identify in the album, like what would you say is one of those stories that's being told?
Honestly, the biggest arc is just like, what is it to be human? Like I was thinking, I mean, in the second half of the album, I think the theme is like heartbreak and longing and all of that kind of thing. And in the first part of the album, it's like, it's kind of silly and fun and like, let's go and do something. Let's like the song Color is such a beautiful song.
I love Color.
Yes. And Polly is a really fun, like cute song, but it also has this depth. It's like the story or the arc is like someone having fun with their life and like experiencing the highs and lows and experiencing like really deep emotions and asking really deep questions, but also just having fun with it and just living.
So I have to confess that on my listens of this album, it wasn't speaking to me the way that it's clearly speaking to you. But I think that the way you're talking about it and the sort of the fact that you acknowledged the chaos, I was like, oh, okay. Because I think maybe I was worried that I was missing something as I was listening to it, because when I was talking about the album with Tyler beforehand, I used the word untethered because it just sort of feels like it's all sort of floating and there's no like anchor holding things down anywhere in the album. And I thought maybe it's just me, maybe it's not speaking to me for some reason. And it ultimately might not speak to me personally, but now that you've said this, I'm like, oh no, wait, okay, I think I am hearing what he's going for. It is sort of an amorphous thing that's happening. When you talked about like past, present, and future, I was like, yeah, coexisting is what it feels like. Like time does not, there's no rigidity to this album.
Yeah.
It just sort of floats all together in some way. Is that a fair assessment of like what he's doing?
I mean, to me, yes. In my interpretation of it, yes. Or the way it hits me, like I'm a very airy person, and I'm like the past, present, future being all at once is like very exciting to me, and just the chaos in general. Like I attract a lot of chaos in my life. I think it's really fun. And so
it's good that you own it. Some people can't own it, but yeah.
It's intentional. All right. I mean, if it isn't, then it has to be, because it's like we all attract what we want, you know, and if you don't want it, then you have to really check in with yourself. But I think it could just be, this album isn't for everyone. It's like, I think it's not a very water person album. It's an air person album. Air, and I mean, ironically, earth, because Moses is an earth sign, but I think he has a lot of chaos. From what I can feel from his art, at least, he's like a very grounded but chaotic person, which I'm an earth and air person. So I feel that way too.
I'm loving all this astrological connection here. This is speaking.
We could talk all day, baby. Let me know.
Well, what's cool is also to hear about his process. I think it can't be overstated, this importance of him like specifically isolating himself in Asheville from, you know, and not to say that Asheville is one of the more vibrant, creative towns that this country has to offer, in my opinion. It's a great town.
Mm-hmm.
But I think him very specifically saying like, I've had this particular context I've been working with in LA for years, and I'm going to, as a challenge to myself and my art, put myself into a situation where I'm going to, you know, have a container in which I have to be disciplined. I have to like self-produce, all those kind of things. And it strikes me as kind of similar to how you're describing your creative kind of drive right now. Is that you're saying like, I know that I have these interests. I know that I have this, you know, kind of variety and tapestry of things that I want to express in different ways, whether it's wine or, you know, producing film, acting, whatever it might be. I guess I wonder how you kind of learning about Moses and like how this album might speak to what your creative process is in this phase of your life, and kind of like how you hope it might manifest moving forward.
That's a great question. And it's funny, before the podcast, I was thinking about and just realizing that this album, I use this album, or I'm like the most into this album when I'm very deep in a creative thing, like during harvest time for the wine. Like right now, it's actually harvest time right now. So I literally make the wine, or we all make our wine in the fall of every year. And it's a really grueling and like merciless time, because like grapes don't wait for you to be ready. You have to kind of like you work around Mother Nature. She doesn't work around you. And the song Cut Me, which is the single on the album, is just like the perfect, like waking up at 4 a.m. and driving to wine country, or I often have to drive a U-Haul to a vineyard, like while it's still dark outside, and like pick the grapes or pick up the grapes and like do all these things. And like, I listen to that song on the way over I listen to that song constantly, because it's just about like being exhausted, but like knowing you have to keep going, and like figuring out and realizing that actually that exhaustion and that like energy, or the mix of exhaustion and like creative, exciting energy, really fuels you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I felt that same energy when we were shooting the short film T for Two. It was like super early mornings, super late nights. I had to like drive a lot. I had to just be like on and going, and producing and acting at the same time is not easy. And I feel like I thrive in those environments where it's like a lot is demanded of me, and I have to just like deliver. And this album, just not just the song Cut Me, but like the whole album is sort of like, it's almost like I feel like he was pushing through. His creative process is just like he was pushing through, and he was like figuring out how to get all of these ideas and get these songs out of him so that he could just rest. I don't know. That's how I feel about my creative things. It's like, I have to do this and then I can relax. And the joke is I never actually relax, but I think eventually I will relax. And I'm sure a lot of creatives can relate to that.
Well, the first verse, it must be said, it's when I'm weary and so worn out. Ooh, when my mind's clouded and filled with doubt, that's when I feel the most alive. Masochistic kisses are how I thrive. It's just like you're saying it. You're saying it right there.
Yes. And it's really funny, Michael, when you were saying that like this album is like so untethered, I had this image in my head of Moses in that music video. I don't know if you've seen the music video, but he's like on top of, I want to say it's a train or it's a like bus, but he's standing on top of a bus with this like flowy cape, and it's going really fast, and he's just standing there like literally untethered and just like in the wind and in the world. And like that's exactly it.
That's so good.
Well, Isabella, this is a competition. I don't know if you're aware of that, but in order to do that, the panel of judges needs to deliberate. So it's time. Dun dun
dun dun.
Whatever the sound is. Yeah.
All right. I'll start with saying I feel like it's a bold move to say that it's one of the best albums of all time, because we're not asking people to present albums that they necessarily think are the greatest album of all time, right? That's not the brief necessarily. But what I appreciate about this argument is that there was a confidence with which each point was presented, and it was based on a personal instinct, right? Which I think is kind of in the spirit. It's kind of in the spirit of the album. And even if there wasn't like an answer by the book.
Fuck the book.
Exactly. Isabella has done us a service by saying fuck the book and saying like, no, this is correct because it's my relationship with this particular piece. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Michael, what else is coming back to you?
I think the thing that's sticking with me is I kind of alluded to it in my last observation, the fact that I sort of, when I was listening to this album, I was hearing all the themes and all the motifs and all the ideas, for me, I felt it was lacking an anchor as I was listening to it. But hearing you talk about it and talk about like what it means to you, how you discovered it, and also like being able to like pick out those threads, like the thing is about masculinity and about sexuality and sensuality, I would say as well. For me, I mean that sort of reinforced this as like, oh, okay, this is and I mean this in a positive way, a beautiful mess. Because it sort of feels like he's like wrestling with a lot of things at once, but he's not giving you any sort of resolution.
Right.
And I feel like that, like, I don't know if I would have come to that conclusion if you hadn't have made your case over the course of this episode. So that's what I'm taking away from this.
Yeah.
I mean, when is there resolution in life, you know? And that's kind of the point. Like we never
when you die.
Right. Yeah. Or when you decide, it's like you have the power to find resolution. And I think there is just to point out, there is a song called Lucky Me on the album that to me is so resolute. And it's so also Bless Me Before You Go, or I think it's Bless Me. Those two songs are like the resolution of the album, where it's just like acceptance and just like, I know that this was awful, but it was also beautiful. And I was so lucky to have been here. And whatever that means, whatever here is, whatever situation you're in, it's very, it's kind of final in a way.
Oh yeah. Lucky Me's a good one. Lucky Me is a really good one. It's kind of heart-wrenching. Oh, God.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a strong case. So, Michael, how are we doing this together? I think maybe do we weed out all the business, and do we say on the count of 3, yes or no? Is that what we do?
Well, but there might be a weird delay though over
That's
Zoom.
True.
But so let's try it anyway. All
right.
You can do thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we can say it.
All right. Isabella, why don't you give us a 1, 2, 3, and then we'll say okay. Yes or no, and then it'll be final.
And it's
Ready?
Yes or no. Is this one of the greatest albums of all time? Is that the question?
Yes or no? Does it enter the pantheon as a perfect album that goes to 11?
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yes. We did it. Yay. Excellent.
I have a question. As I haven't heard every episode you've recorded, is there ever just a no? Like that, did the albums just do not pass? Or is it always, do most of them pass?
We reserve the right. We reserve the right to choose something that doesn't go all the way to 11. And there is an album that we deemed imperfect, but that it did go to all the way to 11. So there was a little bit of a distinction there. And that was an interesting conversation. But I would say thus far, we've just been really lucky that everybody has made really solid cases.
Very compelling.
Very compelling cases.
I will state, and I've stated this before, that during season 8, we will in fact have an episode that will air on April Fool's Day. So I'm not saying that we're gonna like reject someone's choice that day. I'm not planning for that to happen, but I'm certainly leaving it open to crush someone's dreams on April Fool's Day.
I imagined as you were about to say yes or no, I was like, what if they both say no? And what if we're just like, what am I doing?
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for giving up some of your free time to come talk to us on a podcast. We're going to crush we're going to like reject everything you stand for.
Oh, you love this album? This is why we hate it.
Exactly. Okay, you've shouted out a few of the many pots you have on the stove, and I can also say that I have drank some of your wine and that it is delicious, and that anyone who gets the chance to drink wine that you make should definitely do it, and you should buy it as gifts for your family and friends too. But this is a moment then you can call out anything that you've got coming up that you want people to know about. Just like what are you pushing these days?
Yeah. Well, the short film that I produced and acted in is in post-production and will be finished very soon. We're so close. It's called Tea for Two. It was directed and written by my friend Victoria Sintra. She's amazing. We are in an acting class together in the Bay Area, and we just had such a fun time making it. I'm excited to share it with everybody. Cool. With Isa Wines, there's always events. There's always opportunities to enjoy the wine. If you follow at isa.wines on Instagram, you can see basically everything you need to know, or drinkisawines.com is the name of my website, and you can order there. I don't really post about events on there, but I do love having events, especially in the Bay and in LA. Yeah. I have some in New York sometimes, so that's a fun thing. But other than that, I don't have a lot to plug. I'm just kind of focusing on my life and stuff right now.
That's plenty. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah.
It really is. It's too much.
Do it well. Do it. If you're going to do it well, as they say.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe it's over. I could talk for hours with you guys.
It always feels that way. We're always like, we would like to talk for hours. So one of these days we'll have extra extended editions.
Yeah. Yes. We're at 10 hours.
Yes. Whole weekend, a retreat.
Oh my God. Dear listeners, if you've never listened to this album, you've only heard little snippets from us. So go ahead and give the whole thing a listen on your streaming platform of choice, or, purchase the album, put a little money in Moses Sumney's pockets. That'd
be nice. Hurt.
Yeah. And of course, we're on the social medias.
Like, subscribe, the whole thing. Leave a review. I'd love to read your review of the pod. Just
we haven't had one. I mean, well, as of no, careful what you invite, Tyler. Be
nice, please.
As of this recording, I don't think anyone's ever really written a review of the podcast or an episode. So
maybe my dad. Did
you write one? I mean, do you like
I'm gonna go check on this.
I'll tell my dad too. I'll have my dad write a review.
Would love that. We can't thank you enough for listening. We love doing this, and we love having our friends on to talk about the stuff that they love. So thanks again. See you next week.